Hello everyone, welcome to Achievers IAS classes. Let's begin a discussion on the current events of 16th March 2018. The first issue in news is regarding the practice of witch hunting. Witch hunting is an act or conduct of identifying or accusing a woman of practicing witchcraft which could harm another individual or the society at large, therefore harassing or harming the woman who is considered to be a witch, either mentally or physically or by damaging her property. The issue is in news because the Human Rights Commission of Odisha has recently directed all the district collectors and superintendents of police to furnish reports on the action taken to prevent witch hunting and related violence. The state government has already formed a composite action plan to tackle the menace of witch hunting, but the problem has still persisted over the years, thereby posing a threat to the right of people to live with dignity. The maximum witch hunting cases were registered in the tribal dominated areas, many of whom have their own customs, thereby further challenging the elimination of the practice of witch hunting. A point to be noted here is states like Rajasthan have already banned the practice of witch hunting and put in place legislations to protect the vulnerable sections, particularly women who are accused of being witches due to various personal reasons as well. With that, let's move on to the next issue, which is an editorial regarding the recent decision of the Reserve Bank of India to ban use of letters of undertaking issued by the bankers to businesses for international transactions. We already saw in yesterday's news analysis how the decision could negatively affect traders who are dependent on such instruments for import of raw materials because these letters of undertaking are less costly than other instruments used to access capital in the international market. Taking forward this discussion, the ban on LOUs is the first major step taken by the central bank post the PNB scam, which was due to the misuse of such instruments. The RBI had earlier too had highlighted the failure of internal controls which has resulted in this scam, but recently the RBI governors made it clear that the RBI did not have adequate powers to regulate public sector banks and does not have enough powers like to remove any of the directors or liquidate a lender as can be done in case of private sector banks. In this regard, the RBI governor made a demand that the RBI's powers over banks should be made ownership neutral, thereby granting it the autonomy to act in such cases. While this constitutes a valid demand, the decision of the RBI to ban the LOUs may not be a solution because such knee-jerk reactions will indirectly hurt bona fide transactions as well, thereby negatively impacting the credit market and ultimately the export competitiveness of Indian traders. With that, let's look into the next issue, which is talking about the narrowing of India's trade deficit. This comes when there are concerns over a global trade war which could hit the exports negatively given the recent decision of the US president to hike import taxes on steel and aluminum. In this backdrop, India's merchandise export are expected to touch $300 billion in the current fiscal year, given the rise in commodity prices and a strong demand in the United States and Europe. India is also hosting a mini ministerial meeting of the members of WTO to discuss the impact of hike in import duties on steel and aluminum, which are against WTO rules. From the prelims perspective, we need to remember major exports as well as major imports of India and their relative weightages. The major commodities of export include petroleum products, organic and inorganic chemicals, pharmaceuticals, rice and electronic goods, with electronic goods having maximum weightage. While on the import side, the major commodities are petroleum, electronic goods, pearls, precious and semi-precious stones, coal, coke and briquettes, with maximum weightage given to petroleum, crude and other products. With that, let's move on to a related news article which is regarding the recent challenge of India's export subsidy programs at the WTO by the United States. The move comes after a string of statements made by President Donald Trump accusing India of unfair trade practices, and recently, a statement made by the US Trade Representative listed schemes like the Merchandise Exports from India scheme, Export Oriented Unit scheme, and other sector specific schemes as distorting trade, making Indian goods more cheap thereby negatively affecting American workers and manufacturers. The US has been imposing countervailing duties in response to all these Indian programs already, but the recent decision to challenge these programs at the WTO is seen as a political move and qualitatively different from the countervailing duties already being imposed on Indian goods. With that, let's look into the other issues in news. Pakistan has asked its envoy to return for consultations amid growing bilateral tensions between India and Pakistan over alleged harassment of its diplomats in India. We looked into it in yesterday's news analysis how the two countries have been accusing each other of filtrating the diplomats, and given the rising incidents of ceasefire violations, we have to wait and watch what impact the recent episode of allegations of diplomatic harassment will have on the bilateral relations between India and Pakistan. With that, I conclude today's news analysis. Do share this content if you like it. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.